Welcome! Thank you so much for joining me on the Socially Delightful podcast. I'm Jewel, human connection enthusiast and your host, and this show is all about delighting in yourself, delighting in socializing and in others, and creating truly supportive, delightful friendships and relationships, even in our modern world with our modern stress. In this podcast, we have fun creating a new culture of living in social delight. Now let's dive into how we're going to do that today. Welcome to the Socially Delightful podcast. I am delighted to have you here. We are going to be talking about quality and quantity of friends today, and does it even matter? What does matter? We're going to be talking about prioritizing. Might as well get the whole word out of my mouth. My brain goes so fast sometimes. But I want to start by saying I am truly delighted to have you here. I know there are so many videos and podcasts and things out there on the internet, and I am so glad that you clicked on this one and are expanding the lovely, amazing connection that you have in your life and coming to hang out with me today. So thank you so much. Welcome. Let's get comfortable. Let's have a good time. So today's episode, I'm going to start by making the case for community and making a case to you about quantity of friends, the quantity of friends, and that it matters. Now, I know you just clicked on this episode. I just thanked you for it, okay? Remember? Do not turn this episode off because you're like, oh my gosh, Jewel, but I don't have time. I gotta go pick up my kids. I got whatever. I don't have time for more friends. I don't need to worry about quantity of friends. Now, I hear you. I don't want to add anything more to your plate either. What we're going to be talking about today is about something that will add more fulfillment and more connection to your life, that will increase, honestly, your social health and well-being. And it's super simple. It's not going to add more to your plate. It can be done in a way that feels good with things that you are already doing or want to do. All right? So stick with me on this, okay? So don't just turn this episode off. I'm going to be making a case to you about this. I'm also going to be talking about how community and we will talk about it in a second, but what weak ties are and how they have really helped my social health even this year. We're going to be talking about the friendship gap that happens specifically for most people in our late 20s, but honestly, this goes for everybody, no matter how old you are. We're going to be talking about the friendship gap and why quantity, number of friends, why community helps with that. We're going to be talking about prioritizing, and I'm going to give you some touch points to help you prioritize the people that you really want to invest in and what that really means. So today's going to be good. It's going to be good. Today's topic too has also really helped me as somebody that has ADHD, and honestly, that has alone, making it easier on my ADHD brain, makes such a difference in my life. So let's start with the case for community, the case for weak ties. Now, in 2014, sociologists did a study, and they found that the more weak ties a person has, the happier he or she feels. So a weak tie, the sociologist Anna Akabari says that weak ties are the people that we run into at parties, the people that we bump into at work, people that don't really make our priority list, but people that we see, if you will, in passing. I like to call them passive friendships. People that are our acquaintances. And you might be like, well, what is the value in that? Why does that really affect your happiness? They found that in the research. Why does that really affect your happiness? What benefit do we get out of that? Because it's not like the meaningful. I'm going to support you in a time of crisis. Like, we know everything about each other. We're going to get through it thick and thin kind of friendship. Like, what do we get out of it? And what we really get out of weak ties, I like to call them passive friendship because, like, I don't know, I think language is important. But passive friendships, what we really get out of this is we have a sense of community and a sense of belonging. And I want to give you a personal example of how this has really impacted me this year. Right now, I'm recording this of July of 2024, and this is something I did this year that really helped me and really just grew my social health and my connectedness with other people. Which actually, caveat, side quest here. If you're like, Jewel, you're a connection coach, like, shouldn't you have this figured out? Who's saying I don't? This is connecting, and the art of connecting and doing it is like living. It's a living, breathing thing that fluctuates and changes. And this was just something I did this year for my social health. But I just wanted to caveat and like say that because I could hear somebody be like, "You should have it all figured out." And again, who's saying who's saying I do or I don't? This is just an ever evolving thing. Connections your entire life, y'all, will be an ever evolving thing. But something that really helped me this year was going to my yoga studio. Now, I work again remotely, most of the time alone, except for my team and my cat. And if my partner works from home, besides that, I work primarily alone. And having people that I go see, like, there are these Bryans that are there every single week at yoga. Like, going and seeing the Bryans, asking them about certain aspects of their lives, them checking in with me about certain aspects of my life, talking with the teachers, and so on. That has, again, really helped my social health. It's really helped me feel good and connected. It's honestly valuable connection that I get with those people, even though I'm not putting them on my priority list. I'm not trying to make them some of my close friends. The difference between this, like, another way actually I want you to think about this, is it's not just your surrounding community, it really is your weak ties that matter. A differentiation is, like, in my neighborhood, for example, I don't know the names of my neighbors. I just know their faces. That might be my surrounding community, but those are not my passive friendships. I'm not seeing them in passing. Those are not my weak ties. The yoga studio, I get different pieces and different connection points and get to share different things again with the Bryans or the other people at the yoga studio every week. Those are my passive friendships. I see them in passing. And it feels good. It has us feeling like, oh, I'm a part of this thing that's bigger. I have this this network, and that's truly why this increases our happiness, is because maintaining this network of acquaintances helps with our sense of belonging. So sociologist Anna Akbari, I tried to really say her name right, I googled it. She studies friendship, and she says that people will make the mistake of thinking that passive friendships are important, but these casual friendships, these relationships help with our sense of belonging, and that is so important. That feels so good. Be like, yes, here's this group of people, I'm in this group. Another example that I have is my coaching friends and colleagues. They are all over the world. I only see them like once or twice a year in person, and I talk to them. A couple of them I talk to them like every month. A couple of them I talk to every 6 months. Right? So, but those are my passing friendships. They're kind of my acquaintances. Some of them are kind of my friends. Doesn't matter. But this is also helpful because of the friendship gap. Now, what is the friendship gap? The friendship gap, this was originally coined by Nell Frizzard, and what it means is that we start to have a gap because of things that are going on in our lives. We start having kids or not. We get married or not. We're focusing on our careers or not. And our friends are doing different things. We're doing opposite things in opposite places. We are also moving, relocating, things like that. This creates a friendship gap, and a study found that the maximum number of social connections for both men and women occurs around the age 25. But as young adults settle into their careers and prioritize romantic relationships, these circles rapidly shrink and friendships tend to take a back seat. Now, obviously, there's problems for this for a number of reasons, and the centering of romantic relationships in our lives has really hurt our sense of connection in so many ways. So there's a lot I could say about that, but regardless, this is typically what happens in our 20s. Now, I don't want anybody to hear this and be like, oh my gosh, this is why it's hard to make friends as an adult. There are people out there that want to connect. I created my dream friendships in a global pandemic with people that I hadn't talked to in years, because there are people out there that want to connect. Connection is a gift. So, listen to other episodes I have about that. Specifically, episode 2 is really good about that. But anyway, this is typically what happens where this friendship gap happens. And the impact of that loss of friendships is not just social, but it's also physiological and psychological. Like, research shows that friendship bonds are critical to maintaining our health, our emotional health, our physical health, right? Not only do social ties increase our life satisfaction, but they increase our longevity, how long our lifespan is. They boost our immune system. They decrease the risk of certain illnesses and increase the ability to deal with chronic pain. And if you're like, okay, Joel, where'd you get that from? A 2010 report in the Journal of Health and Social Behavior. That's where I got it from. So this really matters. Our sense of connectedness really matters, and our community, our passing friendships matter. They're a part of that. Now, also, the reason why these friendships matter is because we will also, it's inevitable for all of us to have meaningful bonds that change and shift, right? That's also part of the friendship gap. Like, if we move, or if we have a friend move and they were somebody that was a really close friend of ours, they might not be as much anymore. They might become, if you will, a passive friendship that we see once a year. Or I would hear a lot of people online say, like, a low maintenance friendship we see once a year or every couple years, or just talk to here and there. That happens. And that can really slap you across the face if you have these meaningful bonds that change and you have nobody to invest in after that, nobody to pull from after that. This is why our sense of community and our passive friendships really matter, is because that network allows us to pull people from that network to create meaningful bonds with. Because even though that friend moved, and even though our love for them has not changed, our relationship and our meaningful connection with them has changed and shifted. And we need connection with other humans. We are connective creatures. We need connection. It's a fundamental need, so much so that babies will literally die, even if they are, which I know, like, what a left turn, but babies will literally die if they don't feel connected, even if they're being changed, taken care of, and well fed, and don't have diseases. Okay, this is such a fundamental need of ours. And so even though our friend moved and our love for them hasn't changed, we still need meaningful connection around us, right? And having a community, a network, a number of friends, if you will, a quantity of people that we are friends with, that does matter. It does. So hopefully I made a case to you for that, about the social health, about the benefits of that. Now, for those of you that are like, okay, I get it, I'm on board, right? I sold you, I made the case for why quantity of friends matter, for why passive friendships matter. If you would be like, okay, what the heck do I do? You do things that you want to do. You do things that you enjoy, and then you just join communities for that. Going to yoga is a really great example for me. I love yoga. I have scoliosis so bad, like I actually can see it as I'm looking into the camera right now. Like this shoulder is higher than this one. I'm crooked. Okay. Yoga helps with that, but it's also something I enjoy, and so I love talking with the people that are there in that community. For you, it might be knitting, it might be rock climbing. I have a client that, which, like, hey friend, I know you're listening. I have a client that loves dogs and is involved, just for her privacy, not going to say which one, but is involved in a dog community. Like, that helps. It matters. And it's do things that you already enjoy, that you do. And if you don't have things that you already enjoy, experiment. Go to a knitting club. Y'all, even if you are in an area that isn't like a city like Metro Detroit or, New York City, this still applies. There are clubs and groups around you. I heard this Reddit story on the Two Hot Takes podcast, which, shout out, I love them, where this Reddit story where this woman was saying that to save money and to meet up with her friends and spend time with her friends, they watch a YouTube video of a yoga and Pilates, I think, session. They watch a yoga Pilates YouTube video every week, and then they switch who hosts it. And so, like, once a week, these women get together and they they do that. So book clubs are also a really great example, and I love that book clubs are becoming more and more prevalent. They really hit on all of the 3 necessities of friendship. See episode number 2 to know what I'm talking about, like what makes meaningful friendships. Book clubs are that. But anyway, do things that you already enjoy doing, and I like to think of it this way too. We get to do things or take part in things that we want to step more into. So, for an example, I have a client, again, I'm gonna keep out certain details for her privacy, but I have a client who was like, oh, I do want to be more fit. I do want to prioritize my fitness, my, physical health in that way, even though I don't enjoy it. And I don't enjoy going to a gym, and doesn't sound like super fun. And for her, finding a community that, or like a gym that did group classes, super helpful. This will also help you, by the way, be more likely to stick with things, because you'll be like, oh, I know I'm going to see this person. Or for me, I know if I don't go to yoga, I know the Bryans will be like, I wonder where Jewel is, for example. So it'll help you, want to keep going to this thing, to see these people, as these weak ties, this community will help you with that. But also it helps make it more fun too. Like, we are in this together. So you get to take something that you wouldn't normally enjoy, but it's something that you want to prioritize more. And that community aspect helps make it something that you have more desire for to do. Helps make it even more fun, more fulfilling, more sense of togetherness. I personally myself do not have. Actually, that's not true. I really believe in. It doesn't matter. But I am an atheist, but I do know for some people, if you want to get more acquainted with your faith, like being a part of groups like that are really helpful. I also, this is something that I want everyone to take with a grain of salt, and like just understand like what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. But I get a bunch of clients that are either in AA or like even Marijuana Anonymous, or have been a part of an AA or a Marijuana Anonymous at some point in time. And obviously, we are not talking about their addiction, okay? And obviously, I'm not helping them like through withdrawals or anything like that. I am not qualified. I stay within the scope of my practice. So let's, understand that. But I get quite a few people that are creating, if you will, more sober communities and more sober connections. And a lot of times I get people that, even clients that'll be like, I don't really want to drink as much now that I know how to manage my social anxiety. Not that I was drinking a lot before, but now I really don't want to drink when I go out because I don't need that, if you will, social confidence in a bottle, that, not that alcohol really does provide social confidence in a bottle, or else we would all be different people. But anyway, that happens quite often and quite frequently. But one thing that I have learned through, and obviously this doesn't speak to every group in every place, but one thing I have learned from people that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back to AA. They will go, and even if they have been sober for years, or like, I don't know exactly all the correct terms, but like in recovery for years and years and years, and they haven't used or drank or whatever it may be, they will still go to AA because then you get to be around people that are sober, that are like-minded, and that's a community. Those are weak ties. That matters. That's around a common thing. So things like that are really, truly, deeply helpful for us. So now we're going to be talking about the case for priority friends, who you want to prioritize. I used to try to be friends with everyone because at one point in time, I thought, if I can have like 10 different best friends, then I will feel loved, and then I will feel worthy. And that's really hard to do, especially if you're someone like me who, has dreams and goals and, really has big things that she wants to, or you, blah, 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 that you want to work towards. Having like 10 best friends is not sustainable. And that's because having lots of friends does not equal feeling close. Now, the weak ties, the passive friendships, the community, that is important. But most of the time when people are lonely, they are lonely because they don't have the meaningful bonds that they crave. They don't have confidants. And I'm actually going to be doing an episode really dissecting this further, but one thing that we know is that there's been an increase in avoidant attachment styles. We have had a steady decrease in the number of confidants. And when I say confidant, I mean somebody that you go to when like shit hits the fan, like someone you really trust that you confide in. The number of confidants or best friends has decreased throughout the years. Like, this is a problem so many of us are having, not just even in the States, but globally, honestly. And I don't have a ton of best friends. This is also something that surprises a lot of people, that I don't have a ton of best friends. Whenever I meet people and I tell them what I do, they're like, oh, I bet you have 1,000 friends. I bet you have so many best friends. It might have even been surprising to you to hear that there are people in my life that are acquaintances that I'm not trying to be super close with. I've also gotten that feedback where they're like, oh, but you're not trying to make them like a really close friend? No, because it's not sustainable. And in time, that does not create deep, meaningful bonds, especially the bonds that we crave. So I prioritize a small number of friendships. And if you hear that, especially if you are my friend, you might be like, oh, like, are you just prioritizing certain people that, like, are some of them better than others? No. And it doesn't mean that I love certain people more than I love others. I can deeply love you and appreciate you and who you are as a person and be so grateful for the memories and the sparks and the moments of connection that we have and not prioritize you because it's not sustainable, right? That just literally leads to social burnout. Trying to be super close with a lot of people, because the truth is, when we are befriending everyone, and when I say befriending, I mean the act of creating meaningful friendships, not just being a part of your community, not just nourishing some passing or some passive friendships. But if you are trying to absolutely befriend and make a friend out of everyone, you are close to no one. I prioritize my friendships so that I'm not overthinking on who to connect with. I prioritize my friendships so that I'm intentional in blah, blah, blah. Why can't I speak today? But I prioritize my friendships so that I'm intentional about who I spend my time, energy, and brain space on. Because one thing we don't realize that we have is we have friendship habits. And so if there's a friend that you don't want to be as close with anymore, but you have a habit of going to this friend when you are sad, or if you don't have plans on a Friday night, you're used to going to hang out with this friend or reaching out to this friend, even though you don't want to be as close to them anymore, you're not doing anything differently, right? Like that, I see that happen from time to time. But I prioritize my friendships, so I'm intentional about who I spend my time, energy, and brain space on. I prioritize my friendships so that I and the other people around me can have the deep, comfortable, best friendships that I used to daydream about having, that I now have. Right? This is why we prioritize friends, not because some people are more worthy than others and we should be super close to everybody, because that's not what love is all of the time. Right? I prioritize my friends just like how I prioritize my tasks in my business, because anybody that owns a business knows that there are like 1,000 things you could do, 1,000 ways you could do it, and you need to prioritize which tasks are really going to move the needle forward for you and your business. The same with your friendships. Now, before we get into some touch points that will help you decide who you want to prioritize, I also want to say that who you do prioritize, like the people that you choose, it doesn't mean it's cemented forever. Friendships ebb and flow. People move down or we become not as close to them as much, or they like move up and move closer to us. And that's like a beautiful part about friendship. And it doesn't mean that the bond was any less special at that point in time. A great example of this is actually my, if you will, childhood best friend. She will be like the maid of honor at my wedding. And she was my rock, my person for so many years of my life when I was younger. And then I went to college and I created new friends, and she created new friends, and she was still important to me, and we were still close, and I still loved her the same. But at that point in time, partially because of proximity, we prioritized different people. Both of us did. And now that I'm back in the same area, now that we are in different places, I've been out of, oh my gosh, I've been out of college for so long now at this point. But I've been out of college for a really long time. But that friendship, if you will, it has flowed back into my life as she's become, if you will, my rock, I don't love this term, but just to really paint the picture, like my number one confidant, like, and not that I rank my friends like that, I do not, but like the person I go to, I've realized at this point in time the most often. Okay. And this is the beautiful part about friendship. And this is also why having a number of friends rather than just a very small number, having a bigger number of friends also really matters, is because she wasn't demanding me to, come home every weekend from school, to, talk to her all the time, even though, our schedules are completely different. And I was, probably staying up to study and she was waking up early, right? Like, she wasn't demanding of my time and of my energy and presence as well, because she had other people in her network that she could invest in and create confidence with. And again, we're still close, but that's how, like, that's the beautiful part about friendship, is it can ebb and flow like that. So when you prioritize these people, prioritizing is something that we do to help us be like, okay, here are the people I'm intentionally investing in. Here are the people I'm going to intentionally make plans with. Here are the people I'm going to intentionally go to when shit hits the fan for me. Here are the people that I'm going to make sure I connect with them frequently or think about them frequently, right? So we can create the deep, meaningful bonds that we want. And the beautiful part about friendship is it can ebb and flow, just like how it did with my childhood best friend. If you are hearing this and you're like, that's great, I'm excited to do this, and before we even get to evaluating your own friendships, if you were like, oh my gosh, but I don't want to be mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, I think it can be really helpful that if somebody comes to you and is like, oh, you're not prioritizing me as much, or so on, I think it can be really helpful and really raw and beautiful to be like, yeah, I'm just in a place right now where I'm really focused on this. But I still love you, and our connection has meant a lot to me, and I just like it the way it is, right? But I'm really focused on, you know, people that are giving back to their community. I'm really focused on creating more friends with people that are very active, whatever it might be. And so I know there might be some resistance to, oh, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. The likelihood of somebody approaching you and saying that to you is rare, but if somebody does and is like, hey, you're not prioritizing me as much, I do think it is helpful to communicate clearly and to make it about you and not them when you are communicating. Because even if they aren't as active, if you will, and you want to be around people that are active, it doesn't mean that they are less than. It just means that you are wanting the presence of something different in your life. It doesn't mean that they are wrong, you know? So, and again, the likelihood of somebody coming up to you and saying that, I have never had a client have that problem, ever. But a lot of times we think, oh, this is mean. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to leave anybody out. And I think that's beautiful. And it just means that you are empathetic and you care. But one thing that I want to offer is, by you prioritizing people in your life, you are also letting the people that you are not prioritizing have space to invest in and prioritize other people that will prioritize them. How many times can I say prioritizing? Like, hopefully that makes sense. Let me reword. The people that you are not prioritizing. So let's just say your passive friends. It is not only okay and fulfilling for you and what's best for you and your connections and your social health to prioritize certain people, and maybe your passive friend is not one of them. It's also good for your passive friend because then they get to prioritize other people that really want to invest in them and have those bonds. And then they just get to have a great passive relationship with you. Now, one thing that we also know, at least in female friendships, honestly, I'm sure it's similar in male friendships in a different kind of way, but only 50% of our friendships have reciprocal prioritization, have mutual prioritization. Only 50% of our relationships match up where we prioritize them and they prioritize us equally. And before you freak out and are like, oh my gosh, some of my people that I'm really investing in and prioritizing, they are not prioritizing me, you are doing it too. Okay? There are people that are reaching out to you more, that are trying to have a relationship with you, and you are not making them as much of a priority. Okay? Like, it's okay. Part of this is because of life circumstances, part of this is because everybody has this beautiful art painting of different flowing relationships that are ebbing and flowing at different times. Like, it doesn't mean anything else, all right? So it's not mean, it's very kind for you and for everybody else. Now let's talk about how to prioritize your friendships. I want you to first evaluate your current friendships and ask yourself what relationships are mirroring who you want to be and what relationships aren't. This even goes for community. Now, I have nothing against marijuana use, but let's say you have a community where they get together and they, smoke every other week or whatever it may be, and I don't know, like play video games or something. And you are not wanting to smoke as much anymore, or you are trying to quit, whatever. Let's just, this hypothetical here. Also evaluate, like, okay, do I want to keep being a part of this community? So when I say relationships, think of this as friendships and community. So what relationships are mirroring who you want to be and what aren't? What relationships are fulfilling to you? Fulfilling, because mirroring who you want to be and being fulfilled are different. What relationships are fulfilling you? So just to kind of evaluate that and understand that. Now, when I prioritize people, I look for people that are emotionally intelligent, because the depth of a relationship, like as you go deeper and deeper, you're going to have conflict. And dealing with conflict can really bring you closer if you both are able on some level to be emotionally intelligent and to communicate and things like that. So that is a value for me that I really prioritize and look for in a friend, in any kind of relationship, to be honest with you. That's what I look for first and foremost. But I also want you to ask yourself, and what I would recommend doing is to write a list of all of the people that you have had sparks of connection with, of all of your friends, your acquaintances, your passive ties that you currently have. Make a huge list and like keep asking who else, who else, who else. Keep making this list. And then I want you to go through this list and either circle, star, or underline who reflects who I want to be in the world. And then circle, star, and underline whatever else. Who do I feel the best around? And then circle, star, and underline who can I create consistency with? Who can I create a routine with? Who can I, like, who's readily available? Because, for example, somebody on there might be, again, live 2 hours away from you. And yeah, you can do FaceTime dates and stuff like that. But if you are really looking to create like a deep, meaningful bond, it might be helpful to look for somebody that's closer to you, right? This is what I'm saying by we're not prioritizing people just because they're more worthy than others. It's just about what we're looking for. So those are the touch points I would look at. I want to be really frank here because I know that's very like vague, but that is a beautiful and great place to start, and that will help you right then and there prioritize. Now for me, I have a priority list of like 8 people, and this list includes confidants. This list includes people that maybe are a bit acquaintances that I want to be closer with. And these are the 8 people that I'm like, okay, yep, here are the people that I'm actively investing in. Here are the people I want to make plans with. Here are the people that I want to share my news with when I have good news to tell. Here are the people I want to check in with. That is so helpful for me because we live in this world that with social media where we are exposed to every connection that we have ever had, right? I'm sure y'all have heard me talk about that before. And so it can be easy for all of us, ADHD or not, to get caught up in, oh my gosh, I need to make sure I talk to this person, or I haven't talked to this person in a while. And not that you don't want to reach out to some people randomly, right? Like I have a couple people from college that I don't like physically see in passing, but that are my passive friendships that I check in with from time to time. But having a priority list is super helpful for that. Like, okay, I know who I'm actively investing in, and it helps ground you as well when that noise starts to come up when you're like scrolling social media and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to my coworker from 2 years ago in a really long time, right? Like, it allows you to be like, yep, well, that's because they're not prioritizing them, right? And allows you to kind of like breathe a little bit. So I would advise you to just really look at, okay, who is in your sphere? List all of your friends, right? All of your passive ties, people that you've connected with or maybe haven't talked to in a while. Truthfully, the two girls, Nikki and JP, that were in my episode 2, they were people I hadn't talked to in years, right? But I was like, oh, I really loved this person. This is somebody that I had a spark with. These are people that I admired, and I put them on this list. And I did this too. Like I could honestly probably could find that list somewhere. But anyway, like list all of those people. And especially if they're your current friends, like ask yourself like, okay, are these friendships that I'm currently spending time with, have habits around, are they mirroring who I want to be or not? Are they fulfilling me? That's going to be helpful just to look at and evaluate where you are at. But when you are prioritizing, you're looking at that list, star, circle, and underline who is mirroring who you want to be, what relationships really fulfill you, like what relationships you feel the best around, and pick a few people from there that are like, oh, and pick people that are like close to you or can have the kind of connections that you want to have. Again, I wanted emotionally intelligent. A lot of people, a lot of y'all might want proximity as well. That might be really important. And this is a practice I will say that I do with my clients. I help them choose and do this, and I walk them through this. I have a module in the program about it that will really help them identify, okay, what's really important to me and what kind of communities do I want to be a part of as well. And part of the reason why this is, because I'm trying to make it as clear and simple as possible for y'all, to be honest, but it's also every person has different things that they really want. And a couple of things I really like to do with my clients is help them, one, find the best friend fits that really work for them. And two, help them learn how to communicate and advocate for those things and get those things out of their friendships. So I want to keep it really, just to tell you my intention, I want to keep it really simple, these touch points on purpose. One, it'll be easy to remember, but two, because everybody's going to want slightly different things. What we all do want, though, is we all want to feel like we belong, and we all want to have meaningful bonds with people that we know are going to be there for us, that have our back, right? And quality and quantity friendships play a part in that. Now, earlier I said I don't know if this statement of, oh, I really care about quality over quantity is really helpful, because I think it's actually coming from, oh, you're not a quality friend, you're not supporting me in the exact way that I need, like, or like, oh, you're not active enough, like, then you're not a quality friend and I only focus on quality friends. Like, it has like a little bit, at least when I have heard this statement, there's a bit of ego behind it, right? So I don't think this statement is like very helpful all of the time, but I do think it's helpful to realize, oh, I do want quality and quantity. I do want meaningful bonds. I do want friendships and communities. and both are important, and both are uplifting. Both are going to help me with my physical health, and both of them are going to allow me to feel so much love and so much belonging. And honestly, isn't that what really, Nick, take out the like, isn't that what really matters at the end of the day? You know, I will say, for those of you that don't know, I'm getting my master's in social work, and the one thing that I'm always surprised that comes back when we talk about like psychosocial development is we're always noticing, oh, how do I connect with myself and think of myself and who am I? And how do I connect with other people? Like, that's always like the trend for each phase and stage of our lives, from when we are kindergartners up until, you know, we're in our like 50s and so on. Like, every stage, it's really about those two things. Like, who am I? How do I connect with myself? And how do I connect with others? Like, this is really what life is about. So anyway, side note, I just think that's really interesting. But enjoy your communities and enjoy your deep, meaningful bonds. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Sorry if it was a little messy. I think made my notes a little chaotic. But again, thank you so much for joining me today and hanging out with me. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me on the Socially Delightful podcast. I'm Jewel, and I'm truly so grateful that you came and hung out with me today. If this podcast meant something to you, it would mean so much to me if you left me a review so that way I could keep making content that you love. And if you really want to make my whole day, share this podcast to your Instagram story and tag me at Connection with Jewel so I can shout you out. Or send me a message and let me know what resonated with you or what you want to hear next. And I'll see you at the next episode.